All across America and around the world, this is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Good day. I'm Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today here on Veterans Radio, and thanks for joining us. We've got some interesting stories for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We just want to remind you that Veterans Radio podcasts are available on all your favorite streaming platforms, including RSS.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Rees Across America Radio. So wherever you are, you can find us, whether it's on your mobile phone or your computer or your laptop, your tablet. But listen in to Veterans Radio Podcasts. We post something new every week, and you're going to find it informative. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today an Army veteran, Matt Cahill. We're going to talk about an interesting organization that he's founded called Green Star Families of America. Matt, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you, Jim. Great to be here.
You know, this is something that caught my attention earlier this year in some social media post, probably somewhere, and that is that we don't really recognize veterans who have been lost to suicide, and it's such a prevalent problem, has been for a decade or more now. So before I get into that subject, which maybe it starts off with a sound, even I sound depressed here. Let's go back a little bit. You're a 26-year Army and Pennsylvania National Guard veteran. You served as a combat medic. You deployed to Iraq. You also have a Master's of Social Work degree and have you're certified equine specialist in mental health and learning. We've done a number of programs recently on equine therapy, so that caught my attention as well. But Matt, how did a nice kid like you end up spending 26 years in the Army?
I'm the oldest of 6 kids from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, and I needed to get out and explore the world and find myself.
And obviously it was something that you enjoyed doing. The combat medic and the social work there's a fit there, isn't there?
The social work part came later. I learned medicine for a good portion of my life and in my career in the military, and I kept wondering why there were certain ailments and injuries that people survived versus others that seemed a lot simpler and they did not. So it turned more to the mental health world, trying to understand better and know everything I could in that realm. So, well,
as all of us who've ever been in the service know, you know, you kind of want to have a medic as a friend because they help you out when you need it. You have to have a certain amount of compassion as a combat medic. Tell us a little bit about your time over in Iraq.
That was interesting. We got trained up to do detainee ops. And then when we landed in Kuwait, we got the word that we were being switched over to a place called Ashraf. And that was actually a FOB that held the People's Mujahideen of Iran, the PMOI, and they fought with Saddam against Iran during the Iran-Iraq war. So our main job was to take care of those that had defected from that organization, which were not detainees. They were UN-recognized refugees. So the National Guard unit, I think, was better equipped to deal with each of those individuals because they came from all around the world. as well as protect them and do runs into bigger cities to do banking things and stuff like that the organization still needed to do before they all left, I believe, in like 2010, I believe.
Yeah, that's an interesting assignment then.
Yeah.
So it's really a decade later, it's 2020, as I understand it, that you founded Green Star Families of America. This comes out of a certain amount of personal experience. Why don't you tell us what was going on for you in 2020 that kind of planted the seed for this nonprofit organization?
If I can back it up just a little bit to my deployment in 0607, we had an indigenous National Guardsman with us who was suffering from mental health issues. And as medics, we did what we could do following the medical protocol and algorithm and stuff like that. And let's just say, I'll sum it all up, that I felt very frustrated that there wasn't more definitive care in this realm. And that's where it first started, was really questioning, okay, what is there in place from the military that we could have done better to have saved this young soldier? Then I came back and wound up being AGR for Pennsylvania, and another suicide shaped my view of everything. But I was really starting to pay attention that there was a rising issue coming about in veteran suicides. And when I was out, I started my first nonprofit, VETS, which is Veteran Equine Therapy Specialists. And that was to help take the overflow on the local VAs, the Philadelphia VA and the Wilmington VA and the Coatesville VA, to provide equine assisted therapy as a therapy for veterans who we would get in first, and the nonprofit would pay for their therapy up until the point that we could get them, their claim and stuff like that. So 2020 comes around, and my cousin Wes Donnelly died by suicide on St. Patrick's Day. And that had been coming for over a year. His mom and I worked with him to try and get him. And he was in Walter Reed numerous times in Bethesda, and none of the programs were working. And then in August of 2020, my longtime friend, Annie McCaffrey, died by suicide. And I didn't know what to call their families. I didn't know an honorable title other than 22 a day. And I had friends look for an organization, which I very much thought that there was already something like this started. And when we found nothing, we decided to go ahead and create Green Star Families of America.
So all veterans and hopefully all friends of veterans understand what Gold Star families are. They've lost a loved one in military service. Blue Star families are flags flown and decals put on automobiles to recognize that this family has a son or daughter in service. The Green Star family idea kind of builds off that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, yes. As a medic and entering in 1993, we were taught very limited medicine for injuries. Then 2001, 9/11 happened and everything. And then the medical training and combat lifesaver and even the individual IFACs, the first aid pouches that all service members wear, advanced with a lot more medical tools inside there. So I really believe that Gold Star kind of led that, where they really focused to reduce the number of Gold Stars that occurred during the Afghanistan and the Iraq wars. And that focus led to advancements in training and medical understanding and lives being saved. And I viewed Green Star as hopefully being that catalyst that could focus on veteran suicide, so that we could possibly relook at this whole way of how we diagnose and the therapies and the treatments that are provided, because they're not working. So why not try something different that would have a better outcome than what we have now?
Well, part of this, too, is when you see a Gold Star flag flying or a Blue Star flag flying, there's a certain amount of respect given to that family, because you know what those symbols mean. And I think there is a struggle of how do you respect a family that's lost a son or a daughter, a veteran, to suicide. And I suspect that if there was a recognized, and by that I mean at a congressional kind of level, Green Star flag, that would help the family receive the respect from the community of knowing, hey, you lost a family member because they were a veteran and they were struggling with PTSD or TBI or something, and they just didn't get the help they needed at the time they needed. So is there a process to make this kind of a national, formal, recognized symbol that should generate respect?
There is a process that we're kind of blazing the trail on. And I say that because in 1918, when President Wilson recognized the Gold Star, he more or less, and I've even looked this up in many different directions to see, did he executively assign, a bill to make it something? But it wasn't even that. He just recognized it. And it wasn't until 1947 where Congress actually passed legislation formally recognizing the Gold Star Service Banner. So when I first started with this and my legislator, Representative Van Drew, there was no formal pathway we could say, okay, this is how we get this bill taken care of and the Green Star Service Banner recognized. Through our first bill, our second bill, we've learned, and now we've realized that, okay, probably getting the bill to go to the Judiciary Committee would be the best way to get this approved, and then we can work on, who's going to govern it and that kind of thing. Our first bill was aimed at DOD, which is where Gold Star and Blue Star do reside with, but that's under a subsect of a law, the USC Code 36. So it's subdivided all the way down to DOD. And when DOD looked at it, they're like, we don't own this entire problem. So we really can't be that office that takes responsibility for that. Our second bill was more aimed at the VA. And again, they were like, we don't own this whole problem. So we can't take it on as something that we can control totally, which made absolute sense. And I agree with what they did. It's just we had to figure that out and learn it as we went. But now with the Judiciary Committee, once it's approved, then we can work on, hey, would this be the JEC's service banner to take care of, which is a joint executive committee. And that's actually the executives from the DOD and the VA that come together in this committee. And I believe that's probably where it will be assigned to be taken care of and everything. But we're still working. So yes, there's a path, but we'll just have to find it.
Yeah, well, as you say, it's not anything that has occurred very regularly. That's what we do about 60, 80 years ago or something is the roadmap. Yeah, that's an old roadmap. Are you finding in Congress or maybe in the executive branch, I mean, is there any real resistance to this, or is it just we don't know how to deal with it as compared to we don't think this is a good idea? Those are two different things.
I believe that a lot of the legislators are referring to opinions from other national organizations, big national organizations that have been around for quite some time. And I believe those organizations are taking their cues from the established institutions of like medicine and other institutions like that, which I like to challenge, because if their views were on point, then I don't think we'd be in the crisis that we have today. And that the way that they've been dictating things, that we wouldn't have as many suicides as we've had. So I think that this is a crossroads and more or less a revolution of, hey, what has been known and been followed isn't working. When is it time to try something new? And if so, what is that something new? My view kind of comes from both a medical standpoint as well as a little bit of the psychological world with the MSW and my bachelor's in psych, is nobody knows how to cure themselves better than the people themselves. So in a community, and Green Star has become that community where those who are grieving and have lost loved ones, especially to veteran suicide, can come and they can find comfort and healing in them amongst themselves.
But your mission is not to advance a particular mental health therapy, is it? It's more to have, and maybe I've got this wrong, but it seems to me it's more to advocate for recognition and respect.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, that's what our role is. But again, people have found in our community the space to heal. So I'm not going to do anything to quash that if it's working.
Yeah. And whenever you have a community of like-minded people, there's support and there's discussion that allows for healing or recognition. Hey, I'm not the only one who feels this way. All of that kind of comes along. But I guess I'm trying to understand why national veteran service organizations or the traditional medical societies would have some problem with a recognition of Green Star families.
I can't give you a direct answer, but I think I can kind of give you an indirect answer. When I was in the medical field and someone had a medical or a mental health issue, you never walked around and said, hey, that's, a schizophrenic, or hey, this patient's schizophrenic, yada. You don't visit the schizophrenic ward. You know what I'm saying? So they've always tried to not put the spotlight onto the diagnosis because, especially even still now, there's such a stigma that goes with that the community would look at them differently and pretty much change that person's life forever just with a diagnosis. Whereas I think today we need to have those hard conversations. It doesn't need to be stigmatized any longer. And people are proud, if you will, to say, hey, this is an issue I have and I'm working on it. And that doesn't make me any less of a person just because I'm admitting that I've got something that I think a lot of people come to at certain points in their life. And most are able to overcome it and move on. And some decide to make a decision that changes the rest of the future.
There, in Washington, D.C., there's certainly congressmen and women who have served and are aware of the suicide problem. Inside the Trump administration, he loves his executive orders. Has there been any opportunity to advance this concept up to President Trump and say, hey, look at what President Wilson did in 1918 by executive order to get recognition? Is that a pathway being explored?
Pathways are open. It's not one that we've actually actively chased or set our sights on. And the main reason for that is because we really want this to be a grassroots movement. Green Star, as a national foundation or nonprofit, has focused on staying like with the congressional bills, and the individual state bills have been brought up. Like in California, it was actually done by civilians like Aiden Chow, who wanted to see his state recognize the Green Star service banner. And in Pennsylvania, it was the legislators that reached out to us and said, hey, we'd like to create and recognize the Green Star service banner. So we really haven't had an active hand in, hey, setting our targets, our sights on, California and going for legislation there. We've always just maintained focus on the congressional bill HR 6022 this year.
And I want to talk about that bill in a moment, but let's go back because you brought it up, and there's some information on your website that you'll want to pass along to people about the state recognitions. But talk a little bit about that and how that state recognition supports the efforts.
Oof. I think where I need to start is in 2025, and I call it the TikTok reboot. And what I mean by that is when TikTok went down and when it came back online, all social media platforms automatically somehow stopped censoring Green Star. All of our posts prior to the reboot weren't really going anywhere, getting much traction on TikTok, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on all the social media platforms. But after TikTok rebooted and the censorship was removed, the veteran community on TikTok found us. The veteran community and families who've lost veterans to suicide on Facebook found us. So we just exploded in 2025, and we've been letting people know what we've been doing, and people are like, I want my state to do that as well. Since the passing of the California bill and the advancements in the Pennsylvania's bills, more and more people from different states, hey, what's Michigan doing about this? Hey, how can I get involved in North Carolina to get my state to pass this? And that's exactly the grassroots kind of movement we want, where we don't want to go searching or paying people to put forth this stuff. It's motivated individuals who contact us and say, I want to do this, and we guide them as best we can.
Well, there's certainly a lot of families who've lost veterans to suicide, so I can see where the grassroots is working and going to work. So let's go back. You mentioned HR 6022, and explain what that is, so that our veteran radio listeners kind of have an understanding of that. And we're talking to Matt Cahill, who is the founder of Green Star Families of America.
To me, it's one of the easiest bills. There's no cost associated with it, asking for the government for any money. It's nonpartisan. And the fact that it's already been introduced bipartisanly with Pennsylvania Representative Dean and Pennsylvania Representative Bresnahan. Dean is a Democrat and Bresnahan is a Republican. This doesn't have anything to do with politics at all. And it's just simply asking the government for federal recognition of the Green Star Service Banner. It's only a page-long bill.
Does that require them to figure out where this resides? Is that, you mentioned that earlier, it was like DOD said, well, I'm not sure it's ours. VA said, I'm not sure it's ours. So does HR 6022 solve where does it reside, or is it just more of a recognition piece?
It's more of a recognition piece. But we believe that through our past experience and what we've learned, that we've found the right place that it belongs to get approved in government, which is with the Judiciary Committee and then the House and the Senate. So. And
if people want to know more, they can go to greenstarfamilies.org. You've got a website up there, and if individuals at the state level, maybe they lost a son or a daughter, and they say, I really want my state to get behind this. Can they find the resources they need and begin that process online with you?
Definitely. We have posted California's bills and Pennsylvania's bills so that they can see the verbiage that both states used. But what I have found is that every state kind of runs their own government differently. Whereas one state may be able to, sit down with the House and the Senate and get bills passed through in one session, whereas other states have to move it through committees and then the House and then the Senate, just like the federal government. But if they need further guidance there, they can reach out and email me directly or email Cheryl. We've got people who are ready to assist anybody who'd like to get involved at any level.
And if you go to that site, which is greenstarfamilies.org, you'll see stories, you'll find resources available, how to take action, how to support by donating online. Have you found that corporate America supports this idea, or is this really individuals sending in $100 at a time?
I think both, actually. And that's been in the last year or two. Prior to that, under the last administration, we really didn't see a lot of movement. Matter of fact, like no movement. There was no co-sponsors to previous bills. And again, when we realized, maybe this was pointed at the wrong direction, that, motivation for it seemed to stall and that kind of stuff. But no way means does the families ever not find the way that they need to in order to grieve the way they feel they need to grieve.
Well, I think every veteran listening should be getting behind this. Go to the website. All you're trying to do through Green Star Families of America is to recognize and respect the sacrifices those families have made by losing their son or daughter after they got out of service and had to deal with the effects of military service. So I don't see how anybody can not be behind that concept, which builds on Gold Star families and Blue Star families' recognition and respect. So, Matt Cahill, any final words for our veteran radio listeners?
Yeah, if I can speak directly to the veterans, one big reason for the stories and why I agreed to, posting their stories on YouTube and our page and everything, I never understood until I saw We Were Soldiers, the opposite side of battle. And when they started showing when service members died in Vietnam, how the families were notified, that really woke me up to seeing the other side of the coin. And with these stories, I'm hoping veterans take the time to listen to a couple of them. They're really, really hard to get through and really sentimental and very, very, very deeply impactful. Listen to what happens if you choose to die by suicide. Listen to what remains and see if that doesn't help change your mind, or at least give you pause to try to reach out and get help before you make that ultimate decision.
Yeah, fine. Temporary problem, but a permanent solution. So, Matt, I think you're doing good work here with the organization, and we appreciate the time that you've given to Veterans Radio today.
Thank you, Jim. Pleasure to be here.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org. We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, Legal Help for Veterans, a veterans disability law firm with a national practice before the VA, can help you on your claims and your appeals. It can be reached at legalhelpforveterans.com or 1-800-693-4800. We also want to thank our local sponsors. This would include the Charles S. Kettles chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America, that's chapter 310, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423, the American Legion Irwin Preskin Post 46 in Ann Arbor as well, the VA Ann Arbor Healthcare System, and certainly the National Vietnam Veterans of America Association. You can be a sponsor by going to veteransradio.org, clicking on the About Us and our sponsors, and help us out. Keep this program alive for the 21 and 22 years. Keep us going for another 20. Thank you.